I believe we're all seeking an edge. We all have limited time to spend on our personal development, and we all need a hand to figure out where the gold is. So in this video, I'm going to ask, is the gold in James Clear's Atomic Habits? This is my review of his book. Let's find out together. Hey everyone, Andrew Burns, founder of Running2KeepUp.com, here with you again. As you know by now, I hope, I have been studying and reading and thinking and teaching and writing and talking and evangelizing about personal development and improving productivity and limiting procrastination and building new and useful habits. I have been doing that for 20 years now, and every month thousands of people just like you are engaging with my content, whether that be video, written or audio. If you follow me over on medium.com, you will know that I publish an occasional series of reviews of personal development books, some which I really love and some which I don't really love. This is the first time that I've committed one of those to video, so bear with me. So why am I reviewing these books? Well, first of all, I love books. I love reading. And in particular, I love personal development books. This one, James Clear's Atomic Habits, really speaks to me because it seeks to build on one of my favourite books of any genre, which is Charles Duhigg's The Power of Habit. I love that book, and so I am eager to learn what James Clear has to add. So first things first, it is such an enjoyable read. It has lots of interesting stories in there from James Clear's own experience. So there's a story of him getting hit in the face with a baseball bat while he was at high school, the injuries he sustained. It's a pretty harrowing tale, actually, the impact that those injuries had on his life and the kind of the challenges that he faced as a result and the way he kind of bounced back from them. And that's just one of the many stories. Some of the other stories in there are pretty well trodden, if I'm absolutely honest with you. So he talks a lot about Dave Brailsford, British cycling, their concept of seeking marginal gains. This has been talked about in a lot of other books. If you're familiar with Matthew Syed's work, you will have heard this story. He talks about the habit of regular hand washing that formed in India. Again, if you've read Atul Gawande's Checklist Manifesto, you will be familiar with that story. He makes slightly different points out of these stories, but it's pretty well trodden, but nicely written nonetheless. And you know, I actually found myself enjoying reading those stories from James Clear's point of view, even though they were pretty familiar to me already. So one of the things that James Clear does in this book is he builds on the habit loop. The habit loop was kind of popularized in Charles Duhigg's book as cue, routine, reward. And James Clear builds on that a little bit. He kind of remodels it. He makes it cue, craving, response, reward, which sounds like a pretty subtle shift, but actually it's kind of key to the next parts of his book. So on this kind of slightly expanded habit loop, he builds his 4 laws of habit change. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. This is one of the areas where the book didn't really chime for me, but the make it satisfying part particularly, I've struggled with a little bit. Making a habit satisfying feels too languid to me. For me, habits are built in emotion. They are driven by the emotion that we imbue those habits with. And so satisfying doesn't work for me. I wrote a piece a while back now, maybe even a couple of years ago now, about a game that I play with my children on long car journeys called Yellow Car Punch, and I wrote about how the kind of frantic nature of that game, it's a very straightforward game, you're in the car, you're looking at the other cars, if you see a yellow car, you have to be the first one to shout "Yellow Car Punch" and then punch the other passengers in the car. It sounds much more brutal than it really is, and in fact we had to ban the punching part because, particularly me, generally the designated driver, I was getting overexcited. But it's that excitement, that frantic nature of the game, that kind of will to win, that grooved that game into a habit for me. And what I found myself doing was playing that game, spotting yellow cars, even shouting "Yellow Car Punch" when I was in the car on my own. Slightly embarrassing, I'll admit. But if I was just mildly satisfied having won that game, I'm not sure that the habit would have been grooved in the same way. So this is the one aspect of the book that I really have a problem with, and it sounds like I'm splitting hairs a little bit, but I'm not, because it's important, because it feeds into James Clear's other innovation, if you like, in this book, his other big idea in this book, which is that of habit stacking. So habit stacking is where you use one habit that's well ingrained into your life as the cue for a new habit that you're going to build on the back of it. And that sounds like a great idea, and intellectually I really like it. In practice, I haven't been able to make it work, and the reason I think that I haven't been able to make it work is that if your habit ends in emotion, celebration, kind of big effusive gestures, it's quite difficult then to use that as a cue for another habit. Habit stacking seems to me only really works if the end point of each habit is kind of mild satisfaction. And so I found this element of the book probably the most difficult thing to deal with. So yeah, I think habit stacking is problematic for me right now. What I would say is that this book is much more practical, much more actionable than The Power of Habit, Charles Duhigg's book, that this book owes a great debt to in terms of the kind of groundwork. But if you read The Power of Habit, there isn't very much to implement. There isn't very much for the reader to do. It's not a kind of personal development book in that way. It's chock full of science and research and interviews, and it's wonderful, but there isn't necessarily very much for me to do to improve my world. Atomic Habits kind of really meets that need. It is practical, as I said, it's actionable, it is implementable, and from that point of view, James Clear has really achieved what he set out to achieve. And I guess that my issues with his 4 laws of habit change and his kind of habit stacking concept is probably just means that I need to do more experimentation. But I really enjoyed the book. I think it delivers lots for me to work on, lots for me to think about, and I think it could do the same for you. So I would recommend that you go and seek it out. Even if you just read it and do nothing else, it's really enjoyable. So yeah, go and find it.